How's it going, guys? It's your boy Kanji FPL and welcome back to the channel. On today's video we will be reviewing how I got a 100k green arrow, and I named this video my Gameweek 31.5 team selection because I'm going to be going through my Gameweek 31 team results as well as my transfer plans for Gameweek 32 and how I'm going to be planning for my bench boost in Gameweek 34. So let's jump right into the analysis. Let's go! Game Week 31 was a massive success, giving me a 100k green arrow from 430k to 315k. Let's freaking go, boys. Top 100k, here we come. I can really feel it. It's attainable now. So let's walk through my team and understand how I did this. Well, the main difference is that when I look at my team versus what the template has, it's double Arsenal defense. And because of that, I'm going with double Arsenal attack. So Martin Odegaard is my key differential. Whenever he does well, I do well. And because Bukayo Saka missed this game, Martin Odegaard had a massive opportunity playing against one of the worst defenses in the league on the penalties for Arsenal, and he didn't even need a penalty to get the points. He had a masterclass. It was a Havertz pass to an Odegaard goal, but Odegaard was running the show in that fixture, and it was an Odegaard fixture. Even if Saka played, I would have been happy to have had Odegaard in my squad. So really glad to get that differential 11-pointer as well as Phil Foden. Now, a lot of people were considering selling Foden for Mo Salah, and that made sense, especially because we needed Salah for captaincy against the worst team in the league. But I just remember Phil Foden because whenever Mahrez and Gundogan were getting the highlights, I always remember that there was this little diamond named Phil Foden who was overperforming his XG in the moments that he was counted upon, however few they seemed at the time. A couple years later, Gundogan leaves, Mahrez leaves, KDB is sort of passing his prime, and he's too injury prone. Foden's been the main man for Manchester City. He's a sniper. He's clinical. 0.5 XG and 3 goals. He doesn't even take penalties. He's had 2 hat-tricks this year, more than anybody else in the Premier League. Foden is on a different level. I genuinely can't believe people decided to sell him. This has been his season. Foden was going to be a season-long hold for me. I'm not even going to lie. I just felt like my best route back to Mo Salah was actually selling Odegaard, but because the route opened up with Spurs having a blank in 34, I had to sell Son. So now the main threat to my rank is going to be Heung-min Son, one of the best analytical picks in the game. So it's kind of like a 3-round battle where round 1, Foden has won, but let's see what happens in round 2 and round 3 with Heung-min Son. So my transfer this week, again, was Son to Salah for captaincy, who got me 1 point. He got the early sub, which was massively disappointing. Can you believe I went into this Liverpool game with Van Dijk against Sheffield United at home and Salah against Sheffield United at home and my captain, and I walked away with 3 points? Are you kidding me? What is going on? Why do we play FPL? It's so frustrating sometimes, but it is what it is, and let me walk you through the rest of my squad. I did take a hit to do Kaminsky to David Raya, and David Raya did outscore Pickford. I know he only outscored him by 3 points, and I took a -4 to bring Raya in, and I'm okay with that because Raya has a very good double game week coming up in the future, and I'm glad to own him as part of my squad, and it feels like a massive upgrade to change a Luton goalkeeper to an Arsenal goalkeeper and cover up that high Arsenal defensive EO. They've honestly been conceding less than 0.75 XGI per 90, so Arsenal defense is really elite, and I have this feeling that I just want to be playing Raya consistently week in and week out and just play Pickford wherever possible, whenever Arsenal have a tougher fixture. So I'm very content to hold David Raya. And moving on to my defense, we've got Zabani, who I thought had a goal conceded because Eze had scored a goal for them, but it was ruled out for offside. Thank God, Zabani ended up keeping the clean sheet somehow, and he picked up a bonus point out of nowhere. So that was random, but I'll take those points wherever I can get them. Ryan Ait-Nouri was my spicy differential going into this game week, playing against Burnley away. And you know what? He had 2 big chances and he scored. So really happy to own Ryan Ait-Nouri. I brought him in last week and I benched him just so I could have him in this fixture, and it worked out for me. Moving on to my midfield, again, I mentioned this earlier, but Odegaard is my spicy differential against the template on the penalties for Arsenal. He's only 2% owned in the top 100k. Like, what? Martin Odegaard? The captain for Arsenal? Dude, people are tripping. They're obsessed with Arsenal defense, and I think for good reason. That does make sense. But longer term, I just feel like Odegaard has huge potential as a differential, so I'm really glad to own him. And whenever Saka has some niggles and struggles and hamstring issues that I know he's been battling with, Odegaard will be the key player to step up for Arsenal, so I'm glad to own him. Moving on to Cole Palmer, this guy has genuinely saved Mauricio Pochettino's job. Chelsea were up 2-0, and then Manchester United battled all the way back to be up 3-2, and it was at that moment where I felt like, man, this is it for Pochettino. Like, the fans are not really backing him. They're kind of turning against him, but they found a way. It was Cole Palmer, and every single game, it does feel like he's picking up a pen. In this game, he had 2 pens. He got a last goal off the corner in the last minute. Dude, this guy has just been picking up so much rhythm because he's been putting the ball in the back of the net. His confidence surging through the roof. He feels like he's unstoppable at times, and it makes sense. But in my mind, this consistency feels unsustainable. It's not sustainable to pick up 10 penalties in a season. Like, it doesn't even make sense. And this has only been like 60% of the season so far. There's still another 33% of the season remaining. It just feels like it's death, taxes, and penalties to Chelsea. So I'm not sure how much I trust Cole Palmer, but I do want to say that he's not just a penalty merchant. He's also getting goals and assists outside of penalties. So I rate him as a player, but this level of consistency, like 7 points per match, I don't think he's that guy right now. And people are going to be putting him in the conversation with Phil Foden and Bukayo Saka as 2 of the best mids in the league, but Palmer is not on that level, and I want to make that clear to all of my viewers in advance. Moving on to my strikers, I had Dominic Solanke playing against Crystal Palace, and under this new manager, I was expecting it to be a more open game, but it wasn't. Somehow, Bournemouth ended up with the win, but Solanke wasn't involved. So it just kind of reminded me of the underwhelming double game week that we had with Dom. But either way, I'm very happy to own Dominic Solanke, and he's got a wonderful fixture coming up with Luton away from home. Coming on to the last match, we've got Erling Haaland. Now, the issue with this is that Unai Emery played one of the weakest lineups I've ever seen him start against Manchester City. And what's crazy is that when Aston Villa play against Arsenal and when they play against Liverpool, I have a feeling he's going to go full strength. So I don't know why he just gave Man City this win this week, but it was weird. Haaland ended up being benched as well, and Phil Foden did the business. He got the hat-trick. I remember there was a moment where it was like 2-1 and the game was still in the balance. KDB and Haaland are warming up, and then Foden gets the brace, then he gets the hat-trick, and then Pep just sits Haaland and KDB down, giving Haaland the full blank. And unfortunately, I'm actually going to be getting a massive haul off the bench from Malo Gusto, a huge 0-pointer. He did play 90 minutes, so he got the 2 points for that, but he got a -1 for a yellow card and then a -1 for conceding 2 goals. So Malo Gusto gave me 0 points off the bench. Congrats, bro. At least I got Semenyo's 3-pointer who got the assist off the bench when he came off for Bournemouth. So at least I got some points for Saka's benching. But either way, I just had a wonderful week. The template didn't do as strong as I did, so that is just going to be my route to success. Whenever the template does poorly, I will do well, and vice versa. So I'm going to kind of be a contrarian, but I really like my team moving forward, and I can't wait to see what happens next. So in order to keep the green arrows coming, what is going to be my Gameweek 32 transfer? For my Gameweek 32 transfer, I'm looking to bring in a defender. So what I did is I went onto Excel and I inputted my fixtures for the 4 healthy defenders that I've got in my squad. I've got Virgil, Gusto, Aït-Nouri, and Zibani, and I've inputted the fixtures from Game Week 32 until Game Week 38. Now for Virgil's fixtures, I've also included a planned transfer that I've got of moving him to Kieran Trippier at the same price point, because when you look at the fixtures from Game Week 35 onwards for Trippier, they're actually gorgeous. I mean, Sheffield United at home, Burnley away, a double, and then Brentford away. I mean, those are just too good for Kieran Trippier. He's too explosive of an asset to go without him, in my opinion. Especially if I don't have to spread too much money across the rest of my squad, I would love to bring in a premium like him. So he's a lock to bring in. Once I did this analysis, I noticed that the defender I'm trying to bring in this week, I have to play them in 32 as well as every other week this season except Game Week 33, where I'm comfortable with my attacking options. And that limited my options down to only a couple players that I could consider, being an Everton defender, a Manchester City defender, and a Spurs defender. Now that doesn't fill me with much joy, but I have to make the best of a bad bunch in my opinion. So let's first start off with Udogie. So I started looking into that transfer in more detail, but because he blanks in Gameweek 34, I'm unable to bring him in because my chip strategy is a bench boost in 34 and triple captain in 37 strategy. So that rules out Porro and Udogie, and that only leaves me with two options. I've got James Tarkowski and a Manchester City defender and Ruben Diaz. In an ideal world, this would have been Kyle Walker, and it would have been a no-brainer transfer because I just trust Kyle Walker. I have so many good memories with him over the last 3 to 4 seasons, but Walker is currently injured. On the left side of Man City's defense, you've got Ake and Gavardio, who are also very good for attacking threat, but Ake is also injured. So that should nail Gavardio, but we don't have a timeline on how long Ake or Kyle Walker are out. And there's this idea in the back of my mind where I'm not even sure if the juice is worth the squeeze with Manchester City defenders. The only thing is that when I look at the fixtures from Game Week 32 till Game Week 38, they're actually gorgeous. I expect Man City to win every single game from now until the end, and they'll keep at least 2 or 3 clean sheets. If we look at the underlying statistics, Manchester City are the second best defense when it comes to expected goals conceded, conceding only 0.9 xG per 90. It's unfortunate, but there's only one defender you can trust, and it's Ruben Diaz. But he hasn't been having a great season. In previous seasons, he's been easily the top center back in the league, at least top 3, but this year I don't even think he's close. He just continues to be underwhelming in my opinion, and I wouldn't be surprised if Pep dropped him for a game here and there just to keep the rotation fresh amongst the squad. Imagine this guy was benched in 34. When I look to play my bench boost, I would be fuming, like getting a 0-pointer for my Manchester City defender. Like, it's unreal. So I'm just not sure it's worth the risk. And that's why I'm currently leaning towards James Tarkowski. And I know it shouldn't fill you with excitement. It's an Everton defender. But Everton are not going to be a strong attack. They struggle to score goals, but you can always trust a Sean Dyche team defensively. Everton are ranked 4th on the season with an expected goals conceded of 1.25 per 90, and James Tarkowski is an aerial threat off of every set piece, whether it's a corner or a free kick. He is the main attacking threat for Everton in those situations. In addition to this, the entry point for Tarkowski is very good with Burnley at home in 32 and they double in 34, as well as having Brentford at home, Luton away, and Sheffield at home for Game Week 35, 36, and 37 respectively when I look to play him. So they are decent fixtures where if I get stuck playing Tarkowski, then I would do it. But in an ideal world, if I had an extra transfer, depending on the other moves and injuries that come up in my squad, I would want to move Tarkowski on maybe in 36 or 37 to Udogie or Pedro Porro, who would have a double game week in 36, and then a double in 37, which features Burnley, and then Sheffield United away in 38. So I think I'm kind of looking to spend a couple transfers in my defense from now until the end of the season. Virgil to Trippier. I think I'm going to be doing Sven Botman to Tarkowski, and then probably Tarkowski again to Udogie or Pedro Porro. This is what my Captaincy Matrix looks like from Game Week 32 until Game Week 38. And if you notice in each box, I put 3 names there. The names in white are the player that I'm expecting to have the highest effective ownership in each week. So just specifically looking at this week in general, we've got 3 main options. Palmer, I think, will have around 150 effective ownership. I think 100% of the top 100,000 managers will own Palmer, and I think 50% of them will put the captaincy armband on him. And I just think it's a psychological bias of recency. Like, we as humans fall victim to our biases if we aren't able to just have filters for the way that we think and how we process and make decisions. What I think is that people will look at Salah that just got an early sub against Sheffield United, and they'll be like, oh, this guy, Ramadan, I don't know, Klopp maybe thinks he has to bench him and give him the early subs. But the way that I feel is that because it's Sheffield United, Klopp just believes that he doesn't need Mo Salah to win this game. And he just trusts in his squad to get the job done. And you know what? He was right. Like, he made the right management decision. I know Salah wasn't happy getting the early sub, but it was the right call. I mean, you're going through Ramadan, you're coming back from injury. There's no reason for you to be playing in a match like this where you can easily just beat them with the B squad. So that makes sense. Now, you juxtapose that with the fact that Palmer just scored a hat trick. He got 2 penalties. He got the last goal off the corner. Like, people are just going to be thinking about Palmer and saying, you know what, this guy's on fire. He's been scoring every single match, but in my mind, I just feel like it's unsustainable. It really reminds me of what Fernandes was doing in his first season for Manchester United, where it's just like penalties every single week. Now, I'm not disrespecting Cole Palmer. He's not just a penalty merchant, but the penalties are really adding to his consistency and his flow. So it's just a question of like, do you want to back against this guy that's in form, scoring in every single match, being very consistent, playing against the worst team in the league, and he's going to have a high effective ownership? And if you do, who are you going to do it with? Because you've got Haaland who's playing against Crystal Palace away, and Man City continuously just underperform versus Palace. They've already dropped points against them. This isn't going to be a Roy Hutchinson defensive setup, but I'm not expecting them to go gung-ho against Manchester City. Nobody does that. So I just don't think Haaland is going to get that much space in behind. At least that's what my assumption is. I'm making that assumption based on previous Palace performances and the manager not being a dummy and trying to go toe-to-toe with a team that's much better than them. So in my opinion, I think the most open game will be the Liverpool versus Manchester United game. I feel like the Chelsea versus Sheffield game will be much more conservative. I think Sheffield will sit back just like how they have against Liverpool. I don't think that Chelsea are not going to score. I think they will score. I just think Palmer's upside is very low unless he picks up penalties. And he's been doing it consistently. So if you think that he's in form and he can continue doing this and you believe in him like that, you know what, if he's in form, an object in motion wants to stay in motion. And I understand that. But the way that I'm thinking about it, genuinely, is that this is the perfect opportunity to captain the Egyptian king. Now, I think Klopp subbed Salah early in the Sheffield United game because he felt like he didn't need him. But in the Manchester United game, this is the biggest game of our season. I think there are only 2 or 3 big games left, and this is one of them. And I really back Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp to get the title. And if we get a win in this match, this is a huge step in the right direction. I feel like a majority of the FPL community is a Manchester United fan. They have one of the biggest fan bases in all of world football. So I just think Salah's effective ownership whenever they play against Manchester United will be low because people wouldn't want to captain someone against their favorite team or their club. Secondly, Salah did get the early sub, so there is that negative recency bias against him. But those of us that have been watching football for a long time, we know how good Mo Salah is. Regardless of the situation that he's going through with Ramadan, we've seen him go through all these phases before, and he's clinical, finished all of his chances all the time. I have 100% trust in Mo. So in a 50-50 week, where you're able to captain someone that you think is going to score the most points and no one is really going to punish you too much, maybe Palmer will be like the highest effective ownership, so he could punish you the most. And I feel like Palmer is guaranteed to have one return. But I just feel like Salah has the most upside because I watched the Manchester United and Chelsea game and it was really open, back and forth. And that's the type of game where Salah can thrive. So I'm really excited to put the captaincy armband on Mo Salah. The only thing that really holds me back from making this decision is that when Manchester United played against Liverpool at Anfield, they had a very disciplined tactical setup. It was a 0-0 game, and that's because Man United didn't push up. But in every single other game this season, Man United have been pushing forward. So I'm just going to trust that this is the way that Man United are going to set up tactically, and I think Liverpool will be able to expose them because they're the better team. As simple as that. I'm putting the captaincy armband on one of the best FPL assets of all time. Come on, Mo Salah. Get me the green arrow, boy. Let's go. This is my Gameweek 32 team locked in, and I've done Sven Botman to James Tarkowski, and I'm going to be starting him against his old team, Burnley. So I'm hoping he'll go out there and get a goal off of a set piece. Let's go out there, James Tarkowski. You got this, bro. So I'll be excited to watch that game. And I think my key decision this week is going to be starting Jordan Pickford or David Raya. Now, if I'm looking at it from an expected value perspective, I think Pickford will have higher expected value than David Raya. But if I'm looking at it from an underlying statistics perspective, Burnley are expected to score 0.98 XG and Brighton are expected to put up 1.13 XG. It's close enough where it's like, I don't really mind playing either keeper. And when I'm looking at it, I just think of it like a risk decision. Do I want to take on the risk and try to climb against a majority of players and go for double Everton defense? But what if Everton concede and Arsenal keep it clean? Then I'd be absolutely destroyed. So I think it really depends on how your risk tolerance is, and I'm thinking about it in my head where I just trust Arsenal. If they can keep a clean sheet at the Etihad, why would you think Brighton can score against them? They don't even have Matoma or March fit. So I just think it would be a dumb decision, I think, in my part to not have some sort of Arsenal defense coverage, especially given their 140% effective ownership. So I'm still cheering against Arsenal defense, even owning David Raya, but I just think my risk is much lower. So I think this is the right way to do it, especially given the fact that I can still gain rank from an Everton clean sheet with Tarkowski making my starting 11. Moving on to Ryan 8 Nuri, who is my differential. I think he's 15% owned. He should be at 50% owned. He is so good. He's putting up around 0.5 XGI over the last 3 to 4 games per 90. So I think last game he had 2 big chances, and he's just been getting all the chances because he's not playing left wing back. With Hwang Hee-chan out, he's playing left wing. He is their key player. He's their talisman. Everything really goes through them. So I'm really excited to own Ryan 8 Nuri. I know it's a home fixture, which is good, but it's against West Ham. So I'd expect Kudus and Bowen to probably get a return each. But what do you want me to say? It's hard to get returns from defenders, and I think when I look at the other defenders on my bench, I've got Virgil and Zabani, and I would expect Man United and Luton to get goals in that match. So I think 8 Nuri is my best chance at a clean sheet at home, and he has higher attacking threat than the other two anyway. My last defender is going to be Malo Gusto. I'm not sure if he actually started the Manchester United game because I'm filming before that, but he has such a great fixture with Sheffield United away. I'm hoping he starts this match. He's a wonderful differential. I think Chelsea have the 4th or 5th best odds to get a clean sheet this weekend, but you know how Chelsea are. They'll cause their own problems and they'll probably find a way to concede a goal from their own mistakes. So I'm not really expecting a clean sheet, but I really like Gusto's attacking threat. I think last game week he put up 0.7 XGI. So I think you can trust Gusto going forward. I think he's a really good differential to own. Moving on to my mids, I've got Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard. I just have a feeling that one of these guys is going to be benched. I think the problem with Arsenal is that they have so many fixtures from now until the end of the season where they have to play their first 11 in every single one of them. They're not in any of the cup matches. It's just the Premier League. It's just the Champions League. I'm not sure how Arteta will play it, but in my opinion, I think he should rest one of Saka or Odegaard. I think he rested Saka last week. There's a chance Odegaard will get rested this week, but I'm comfortable with that. I'm just hoping it's a full benching and that Semenyo will come off my bench, but I would never just go out there and bench Odegaard. Odegaard is genuinely a huge differential because when I'm looking at the template, it does seem like it is Arsenal defense, at least 2 Arsenal defenders, whether that's your keeper or your defenders. There's 2 of them in general, and Odegaard is at 2% effective ownership. But boys, this guy should not be at 2%. He should be at least at 25%. He is the captain of Arsenal. Arsenal are expected to put up at least 2.5 XG in every single match from now until their double game week. They've got Brighton, they've got Aston Villa, and then a double game week with Wolves and Chelsea. I just think Odegaard is a wonderful differential. I'm going to own him from now until the double and then move him on afterwards. So I'm happy to own Odegaard, and the same thing with Saka. I know he didn't play last game week, but if he's fully benched, then I just think Semenyo will come on, and I've got no problem with that. Moving on to Cole Palmer, he is a wonderful player. This guy is so cold. It's a cold world, and I just think he's guaranteed to get one return this week. Playing against the worst team in the league, you can trust Palmer with the armband. Unfortunately, he's going to be my vice captain, and I think his effective ownership will be above 110%, so I think he'll actually be working against me this week, but that's fine. I've got Phil Foden in my team, and he is a diamond. Phil Foden, this is his season, so I'm really happy to own him. I've got Foden and Haaland. I've got double Manchester City, and that's why I'm very comfortable not putting the captaincy armband on a Manchester City player because I've got enough exposure in that fixture, and I'm putting the captaincy armband on the Egyptian King, Mo Salah, playing against Manchester United away. I mean, you can't go wrong with the Egyptian King. If he blanks, it is what it is. If Wan-Bissaka locks him down, then that's fine. I knew the risks that I took, but I just really trust Mo Salah. Up top, I've got Erling Haaland playing against Crystal Palace away, but they always just find a way to drop points versus Palace somehow, so I don't really trust Man City, and Haaland has underperformed his XG so far this season, but how can you own a player that's 14.0 and not captain them, right? Well, I just don't think he's in form. And if he's not in form, then I'm not putting the captaincy armband. I'm not going to be price biased. I just feel like I want to captain the player that has been the most deadly, been the player that I think is the most scary, and I feel like if I didn't own them, I'd have the most fear, and that's Mo Salah by far recently. Because I think Haaland's only got, 2 returns in the last 5? Whatever, man. And lastly, I've got Dominic Solanke playing against Luton away. I honestly forgot I have Solanke in my squad because his effective ownership is kind of high, but recently there's been a lot of different strikers that people could go to. You've got your Darwin Núñez and you've got your Alexander Isak, so I'm kind of comparing Solanke to that spot, but in my head, I don't really care how Solanke does as long as he doesn't get injured. I'm keeping him till game week 34 for his double. He's got Luton away, Manchester United, and then a double game week, so Solanke's not going anywhere. And he played really well in this Luton fixture. In the previous match, he scored a world-class goal where he beat the defender, slotted it into the far post, but really, Semenyo was the better player on that day. So I'm really nervous to bench Semenyo, so I'm kind of hoping that there is a benching from one of my players in my team so I'm able to play him, but it is what it is. So I'm happy that is what my starting 11 looks like. I'm very, very comfortable. Similar to last week where in Gameweek 31, I was just proud of the team that I've got, and I feel very similar. As long as Salah gets a return, I think I'm guaranteed a green arrow when I'm looking at this team, in my opinion. If you watched to this point in the video and you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? Go out there, hit that like button, hit that subscribe, because you're clearly vibing with my content. I only have a 20% subscriber to viewer rate. So if you are viewing this video, if I provided some value to you over the course of this video, please just drop a like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see y'all again soon. Peace.